Recording device is going, and let's sit down. Let's chat. Let's have some tea or coffee. Let's talk. Hope y'all are well out there in TV land, wherever you find yourselves on this day. We're going to be going over the astrological weather for the week of November 18th, 2024 through November the 24th of 2024. Um, I'm your host with the most, Joan Emerson Bell. I am an astrologer and now a licensed counselor in the state of New Mexico, as well as, I don't know, I do some other things. I am a DJ, radio DJ. I have a radio show called The Melee Report, which is an astro weather report. It is a astro weather love song that I do each week or almost every week, where I put together a playlist of all of the astrological transits, and I talk about them and play songs that I think fit with the transits, and it's one of my favorite things to do. So if you're interested in getting a much more musical version of a weekly astro weather forecast, you can check it out. It's called the Melee Report. Find it on my SoundCloud at Camp Wizard Camp, or on I have a link in my stories. I'll put a link in the show notes. It's out there. Check it out. And what's up, New Mexico? And good morning, Heather for luck. Whew. Also, little disclaimer. I just spent the weekend doing a meditation retreat, and so I'm going to try not to refer to it too much, but it's on my mind. And you might notice my enlightened quality this morning, and that is due to all of the deep meditation that I've been doing. It was a Sanzen retreat, which is dealing with koans, so it is repeating a question over and over and over again, which is pretty interesting. If you've never tried that, it's a wild experience. Anyway, I'm guessing you'll hear more about it during this week's report. And we're just kind of winging it because I was so deep in enlightenment that I didn't really have a lot of time to do my prep work. But hey, we're just showing up the best that we can, doing what we can with what we got. And that's how we do it here on This Week in Space. So thank you all for tuning in. And without further ado, let's get all up in this astro weather. So today, Monday, November the 18th, we have Mercury in Sagittarius opposing Jupiter in Gemini. This is going down at 18 degrees and 48 arc minutes of these mutable signs. We're going to have, I think I have this wrong. Okay, we have Mercury going retrograde on November the 25th, I believe. And so Mercury will be opposing Jupiter a couple more times during that retrograde process. I have it here that Mercury is going to oppose Jupiter again on December the 4th, and then Mercury will station direct on December 16th and oppose Jupiter again on December 26th, 27th. And then Saturn is also all up in the mix, squaring this opposition from the mutable sign of Pisces. And so, what we are experiencing today, never you fear, it's not over. This sense of tension and opposition, and potentially confusion is going to be going on, until basically the end of the year. So good times, good times. Tip this down a little bit. So what do we have here? Let's break this down a little bit. These planets are in mutual reception, which means that Mercury in Sagittarius is in Jupiter's sign. Jupiter rules Sagittarius. And Jupiter in Gemini is in Mercury's sign. And so these planets are sort of in each other's rental houses, right? Or in each other's Airbnbs, or, in each other's territory, which is cool. They can see each other, they can resource each other, except they are both in detriment. Right. Mercury doesn't like Sagittarius because Mercury is like, what's this? What's that? What's this? And Sagittarius is like, shut up, kid, you're bothering me, right? Here is the, like, I want the big story. I want the overarching narrative. I don't want these annoying questions. When I'm like, here is the story, and Mercury is like, this is a plot hole. Like, what happened to that character that was introduced in scene one that like seems to have something to do with the whole situation, but it's just totally disappeared. Like, this is bad writing. And Sagittarius is like, that's not what we're talking about, right? And so, there's some frustration there. Jupiter in Gemini feels the same way. Jupiter in Gemini, I think, is a lot about like division and splitting. Jupiter wants coherence. Jupiter wants things to make sense, right? Jupiter is talking about laws and structures and philosophies, right? The meaning of things. And Gemini is like all of the little pieces of the stuff, right? And so, for example, we can have a philosophy about life. There are many philosophies about life, and we can try our best to live our philosophy to its fullest. However, when we are in the day-to-day minutia, like stuff is flying at us at a constant pace, we might not be able to maintain that philosophy. Or there might be information that comes in that questions that philosophy, which can make it really difficult. Because then what has to happen is either we abandon the philosophy, right, and go back to the drawing board and start thinking about something new, or we sort of reject and pull away or split off and say, that is you, that is not me, right? That is not my philosophy, so that doesn't fit, so that doesn't work. And so I think Jupiter moving through Gemini, which has been happening all of this year, is bringing up a lot of splitting, is bringing up a lot of division, is bringing up, polarization, right? And then Mercury coming in to oppose Jupiter, like we are getting today, and then again on the 4th of December, and again on the 26th, is right these sort of opposing viewpoints, this like big picture versus the why, right? Why is this happening? Why is that happening? Why this thing? Why that thing? Right? And fine, this is a great time to introduce this. Why not? During this retreat that I was on, this koan retreat, I was given the question, who am I? Right? Which I'm just asking over and over and over and over again in like a dyad, being asked, tell me who you are. And I'm like, okay, I don't know, right? And trying to talk through who I am. And during this time, um, Mercury was conjunct my Mercury and conjunct my Sun, which was pretty interesting, meaning Jupiter is opposing my Sun and my Mercury, also pretty interesting. And I'm just sitting there, right, asking over and over and over, which is a very mercurial thing, right? Who am I? What is the like big I am, right? Which is a very Jupiterian thing. And just sort of like needing to be in that tension the whole time of, what is this thing? Who am I? Who is this me? Right? Who is this being? Who is this big picture? What is this big story? And I don't know, just really feeling that tension in myself. And that's my experience of it. I'm imagining other people are experiencing it in different ways. And I think we're also seeing this play out in the larger world in its own unique ways, right? um, Through the polarization of politics and division between people, division between belief systems, right? And Mercury is sort of like breaking down the cohesion, right? And like Mercury is breaking down sort of like the big picture narrative into these little analytical pieces, right? Every time it's asking, who am I, or what is this, or why is this plot hole, or why is this there, or why do you think that way, right? It is sort of breaking down this philosophy, breaking down this big picture, right? Breaking down these systems so that it can build up a new form of cohesion, right? And this is like the in-breath and the out-breath, the like breaking down of the big understanding to like take another inhale into the bigger understanding, right? And so like really needing to sit with this tension of the opposites, right? Really needing to sit with the question. And there's something about like a koan, right? Where it's like this it's described in Marlon Stanton's The Black Sun, which I'm not going to get right now, but basically, what he says is it's like a ball of molten lava or molten metal that you swallow, and it just sort of like burns and burns and burns until it like erupts into the answer. And I think that's what we're doing with Mercury and Jupiter, right? Sitting in this tension, sitting in the questioning, sitting in the deep curiosity. When you receive the question, tell me who you are, or what is this, right? You receive that and you take it all the way in with a deep intention to know, and then see what emerges. And I think that process is great. And one of the ways that that can be sidestepped is just being like, oh, I know, right? Oh, it is this thing, right? Leaping to conclusions, holding on to the narrative that we know that we've been telling ourselves, holding on to that big picture story that gives us cohesion without actually questioning, without actually having that deep desire to know, because I think that's what this tension is all about, is being able to sit with that, like, what is the question and what is this like deep desire to know the truth? And how do I open to that? So that a new truth can emerge, so that an old system or an old sense of cohesion can break down, and that I can like really draw something new and fresh and a new understanding and a new awareness into the world. And so, just something to think about, right? From basically now to the end of the year, is how can we stay in that curiosity? How can we cultivate this deep desire to know the truth? Right? Jupiter, right, and Sagittarius, all about the truth. Mercury and Gemini, all about this questioning and being able to hold the multiplicity, right? The multiple truths. And so, how can we sit with this and cultivate this desire to know this truth, and also to sit with the multiplicity of the truths? And, like, spoiler alert, this is what I've discovered from engaging in this practice. There is no fucking answer, right? There are answers of who am I or what is this, right? But there is no answer. There is no satisfactory answer. And you come to one and you're like, well, I've got another 36 hours to sit here and contemplate this. So let me go back in and try and find, like, see what else there is. And, we might want to leap to conclusions today with this opposition between Mercury and Jupiter, right? Oh, it is this. I know what it is. This is who I am. This is my belief, right? And then we got to sit with that question, right? Whatever that koan is for you, whatever that questioning is for you, we got to sit with that until, through Christmas, right? And so again, like, how do we just create a little spaciousness to be in this curiosity? And how do we cultivate a deep desire to know the truth? And the last thing that I'll say about it before we move on, and again, you're probably going to hear a lot about this because it's very like fresh in my system. But one of the ways that the instructor talked about this is coming to the gate of a city, right, or a village, right, being a traveler at night and coming to the a walled village and needing a place to stay, and grabbing like a stone or a brick and knocking on the gate, right, and that is the questioning, right? Who am I? What is this? Right? Why now? What next? Whatever that question is for you, right? And the questioning is the knocking on the gate. And then the listening, right, is the sitting there and waiting for somebody to come and answer, right? Somebody to open the gate, a watchman or somebody in the village to wake up and come down and answer this stranger knocking on the gate in the middle of the night. And if you are just constantly knocking, why now? Why me? Why this? Why? Right? You know, it's you're never waiting for the answer. You're never being let in, right? And if you just arrive at the gate and you're just sitting there waiting, right? Tell me, No one's ever going to come and answer it, or you're going to have to wait until the next morning. You're going to have to wait a really long time. And so it is this practice. And, I think Mercury is questioning and Jupiter is answering, right? It is this practice of questioning what is this, right? Knocking on the gate and then sitting there and waiting for that answer, waiting for somebody to open this answer, open this awareness, right? So that's what I think about that. Um, Also, on Monday, November the 18th, we have the Sun in Scorpio, trine Neptune in Pisces. This is happening at 27 degrees and 14 arc minutes. And so I think that this can help us to come in contact with this larger vision, right? So we have this questioning and tension of Mercury and Jupiter in mutual reception in the signs of their detriment. And then we have this sort of cohesion that we're getting between the sun, our sense of identity, our sense of self, right, our sense of knowing, and Neptune, which is dissolving, right, but also is the kind of bigger picture, the broader vision, right, the thing that's very far away, and we can like this numinosity that we can almost touch, we can almost feel, but it's always present around us. Right, Neptune is the dream and this greater vision, and this transit can help us to tune into our ideals and come into alignment or a harmonious relationship between our sense of self and our identity and what this bigger vision is, what this, um, our greater ideal is. One of my favorite astrologers, Carolyn Casey, says that imagination lays the tracks for the reality train, and I love that, right? Because it is the bigger vision, the dream of Neptune that can help us to approach that in our daily lives and to live into that as we are shining our light into the world. It gives a sort of orientation for us to shine our light, for us to step into our sun. And so, what are the dreams that we are connecting with? And how do those dreams inform our sense of self and support us in our forward motion, right? And I think another thing to consider when we're talking about Neptune is whose dreams are we dreaming, right? Is this my dream? Is this the dream of the great mind? Is this the universal dream that is moving through me, right? Is this, a corporate dream, right? Of, the vision of commerce, right? The dream that is sort of implanted that tells me that I need to buy this or buy that or be this way, right? Or live into this fantasy vision, right? Of what it's supposed to be, what it could be, what it should be, if only I bought this product, right? And how does that inform the ways that I show up as my sense of self? Because, one of the ways that we can see Neptune is as the kind of like cinematic, right, airbrushed, beautiful, perfect vision that is presented to us through these mediated screens, right? And then my sense of self, my identity, my son is like, oh, if I was only more like that, right? Or if I just dressed this way or did this thing or learned this thing or contorted myself in some way or shine my light in a specific direction, then I could be more like that vision. And so I think when Neptune is involved, especially with like something as important as the identity, as the sun, as the sense of self, to really consider whose vision am I living, right? Whose dream am I living? Whose story am I trying to, what character's shoes am I trying to fill? And I think it can be difficult or even problematic if we find ourselves aligning with a vision that is not authentic to ourselves, because that will bring us down a dead end, right? Bring us to the end of the road where we will have to turn around and retrace our steps and do something else. And, this is part of life. Sometimes it be like that, you know. And I think that there is always learning on the journey as long as we can keep awareness, right? But I think we can also save ourselves trouble if we can, tap into what is the right vision for me, instead of getting kind of lost in the delusion or the illusion, right? And so Um, sorry, I'm just checking my notes. And so, I think Neptune can help us to move beyond what we imagine to be possible, right? By like holding this greater vision, this greater ideal. And as we orient to this greater vision or belief system, right? How does that help us support our sense of self? And I think that this is also really important because Neptune is dissolving, right? It is like the ocean that just like sweeps things out, right? And then kind of like rolls them back in and sweeps them out. And how do we maintain this like ego identity, this sense of self, this sense of I am in the face of this large ocean of consciousness that pulls us in? And how do we come into right relationship to that and understand our kind of place, our relationship to the divine, our relationship to a higher power or, a belief system without losing ourselves in it? And, again, I think this brings me back to my experience of questioning who am I, right? Over and over again, this sense of the sun, the I am, right? And then Neptune, this great, vast sort of ocean of consciousness. And every time it's like, who am I? And taking a drop of this ocean and holding this, right? And being like, whoa, is this me? Right? And then like spilling back, right? Leaking through my fingers, and then asking again, who am I? Right? And holding this ocean of consciousness in the palm of my hand until it like slips through, and again and again and again, like the tide going out and coming back, right? And each time it goes out and comes back, the contour of the beach changes, the tide shifts, right? Mountains over time turn into sand, turn into dust, right? And I think this is can be the relationship of the self to that greater ocean of consciousness, right? Standing on that shore and being in relationship to it. Um, I think that there's also a component of Dionysus with Neptune, right? This god of trance and ecstasy, right? And the power that trance has to tune into divinity, right? To transcend the self. And also to sort of lock us in to belief systems or to instill fear or to keep us doom scrolling, right? Neptune is hypnotic. And as we find ourselves in fear or in anxiety, right, or at a loss of that sense of self, who am I, right? We can go into these sort of trance states of doom scrolling, right, or checking out or disassociating, right? And so, how do we use these trance states, this like Neptunian gift, to induce transcendence and liberation, right? How can we use trance and ecstasy not to check out, right, but to connect with something greater, community, spirit, self, whatever, instead of the hypnotic trance states being used to separate and isolate and disempower us, right? Yeah. And so the last thing that I'll say about this transit is I think it's a good time for spiritual practice or creative practice, right? For tapping into trance states in a skillful way, in a conscious way, right? To tap into ecstasy, not necessarily the substance, but the physical experience, right? In a skillful way, whatever that looks like for you, right? And maybe that's like, drug-fueled orgy, or maybe that's just like sitting in contemplation, right? Maybe it is something in between. Whatever's right for you is right for you. We don't judge here. But, just thinking about how do I tap in instead of tapping out? How can I be just a little bit more present, right? How do I tune in? How do I tune this frequency in to be a little bit more present, to be a little bit more with the kind of vibration of the universe, right? And how can I attune to the sort of subtle aspects of life, right? And to pay attention to our intuition, because we also might be picking up things from this sort of collective field that we live in, right? And how can we be in right relationship with the unseen world, with our intuitive sense, with our kind of deeper knowing to help direct that train, right? To help direct our reality train. And how do we, again, orient ourselves to the lighthouse of that greater vision? So it allows us to navigate, right? To pilot the ship and to avoid the rocks of being lost or doom scrolling or feeling disempowered. So there y'all go. That brings us to Tuesday. Wow, we're only at Tuesday. And this is a big one. This might take up the rest of the show, and if it does, I apologize, but this is kind of an important one. Tuesday, November the 19th, Pluto enters Aquarius. Dur, dur, dur. This is the last time that Pluto will be entering Aquarius until, oh man, about 250 years. So this is a pretty unique transit that we are experiencing. Let's just do a quick recap. Pluto entered Aquarius on March 23rd, 2023, and was there until June the 11th of 2023, just a dip a toe in. And then then retrograded back into Capricorn, where Pluto has been since 2008, approximately. And then Pluto re-entered Aquarius on January the 20th of 2024 and was there until September the 1st of 24. And then retrograded back into Capricorn just in time for the US presidential election, where it was posted up around 29 degrees of Cardinal Capricorn. And then finally, tomorrow, Tuesday, November the 19th, will enter Aquarius, where it will be chopping it up until 2043. So the next 20 years, Pluto is going to be in Aquarius. So we've got some time. And I've got some thoughts on this. And I wasn't going to talk about it, but then I just went down a couple rabbit holes. Whew. And I don't know, since I did the research, let's just discuss this a little bit. So, Aquarius is a fixed air sign, first thing to know. And Pluto has a couple jobs. Pluto does a couple things. Um, Pluto, in a nutshell, is about death, rebirth, transformation. I think it brings up survival fears, survival impulses. Right? Pluto deals with the shadow, everything that we reject, everything that we say that is not me, right? Everything that we don't want to look at, everything that is messed up and traumatic and difficult and challenging, right? We just shove it in a box, and that box, that casket is Pluto. And as Pluto moves through the zodiac very slowly, it sort of churns all these things up. Pluto is composting, right? It is taking down, destroying, killing to make new life. And it has about a 250-year cycle around the zodiac. So the sort of seeds that it plants take about 250 years to harvest. With Pluto through Capricorn, we were harvesting the seeds that were planted during the birth of America, the signing of the Declaration of Independence on the 4th of July, 1776, right? And so that tree, whatever it is, whatever America is, right, is, grown and bearing fruit. And, we are the ones that are here to harvest that for better or for worse, right? And as Pluto moves into Aquarius, it will both be planting new seeds and also harvesting what was planted back in. Ooh, we did read a lot about this. Um, Back in, I don't even remember where. I have it written down somewhere. Anyway, I'm not gonna oh yeah. Yeah. Pluto is in Aquarius from 1778 to 1797 was the last time that Pluto was there. And so we are kind of harvesting whatever has grown since then, and also we'll be planting new seeds. But let's break this down a little bit more before I get to that place in my notes. So one of the ways that I'm thinking about Pluto is as this like death impulse, right? It is seeking to tear down, to break down, to destroy, to chew up, right? Wherever it kind of whatever it touches in the zodiac, in the chart, right? And this is the sort of death impulse, which leads people to experience aggression, right? Engage in risky behaviors and re-experience past traumas. And this is sort of this Freudian idea of thanatos, right? The death impulse. And I think Pluto brings that out, right? And I think, yeah, it brings this death drive to wherever it's found in the chart. And Sigmund Freud believed that people typically channel this death drive outward, which manifests as aggression towards others, etc. But also it can be turned inward, right, to create self-harming impulses or self-hatred. And so when we are looking through Pluto through the signs or through a sign, we are thinking about it on a collective level, right? Because this is going to be 20 years that Pluto is pulling up this sort of outward aggression or inward sort of self-harming behavior or self-hatred, right? And so we can think about the collective drives towards aggression or self-harm. And more specifically, I think about how Pluto drives us to destroy or compost parts of systems and collective awareness that need to be undone in order for us to grow as a collective. And I think what Pluto does is it uncovers the shadow in whatever sign it's in, right? It uncovers what is unsavory, what is rotten, what is not functioning in order for us to release that or compost that. Um, and I don't think that this is easy or pleasant, but that's not how Pluto rolls, right? Pluto is not here to make friends, right? There's also this survival instinct, which Freud saw as eros or the life instinct, right? And this can be the pre-conscious part of the self that operates from a place of self-preservation, right? And so in the Freudian context, right, we can see these, the thanatos and the eros, the death drive and the life drive, as the like wiggly lines in the Aquarius glyph, right? And we can think about maybe the life impulse is the one above and the death impulse is the one below. And I think as Pluto moves through Aquarius, it is activating that death drive, right? And so um, with the this eros drive, this life drive, when made conscious, I think that this can also become pro-social behavior and a recognition that collective good is important for individual survival. And this is like straight up, as human beings, we are wired for community and connection, and we are wired to live in community and to privilege the good of the collective over the good of the individual, because the good of the collective supports the survival of the individual. And I think that we have twisted that. And I think Pluto through Capricorn, one of the things that it has been exposing is the way in which there's the privilege on individual survival, right? And the emphasis on the survival of the fittest and the value on individualism. And I think the Aquarian archetype is much more about the collective and what is inside the collective, right? And what is inside the circle, and then what is outside the circle. Aquarius is focused on the inside and outside. And in the sort of archetype of it, right, we have this idea of the water bearer, the sign of the water bearer. It's an air sign, by the way, but the sign of the water bearer. And the water bearers in ancient Rome were the Aquarii. They were slaves who were the water bearers, enslaved people who were the ones that could leave cities to go and gather water and bring them back, bring the water back, right? And one thing that happens when you can leave the city, right, and go outside the city is you get a very different perspective on what's actually happening there, right? You're able to go climb up, overlook the city, see down, and be like, oh, that's how it all fits together. And this is a really key piece of the Aquarian archetype is the getting to go outside to see a different view. And so what we are looking at with Aquarius is what's inside, what's outside, and how do we shift our perspective to be able to really understand what's happening inside, right, from this vantage point of the outside. Right. And again, we can think about this as the wiggly lines in the glyph, right? What one is like looking above, one is below, right? Um, and yeah, so I think that Aquarius also deals with this relationship between the ideal or the thought, right? The image, the imagined picture, the big picture, right? I am looking at the blueprint, I am looking at the map versus the actual reality of what it's like on the ground. Right, the physical existence of coming down here and participating in life. Which brings me to the myth of Ganymede, which is the myth of the constellation of Aquarius, the water bearer. And so Ganymede was this handsome youth who Zeus looks down and is like, "Ooh, that boy is smoking hot. I want me some of that." And turns into an eagle and swoops down and picks up Ganymede and takes him back up to Olympus. And there's these great paintings of Ganymede being abducted, where he's sort of like, "Oh, really me?" Right? Like not like, oh, like feigning shock and surprise, but like very kind of into the situation. And it's so much um so much about like, this hand coming down from above and like lifting somebody up from the muck and like bringing them to stardom, literal stardom, right? Because Ganymede becomes this constellation, right? And he becomes the constellation of the cupbearer, right? And so, yeah, he's this like handsome youth that is picked out of normal life and made famous, given stardom, which is like really the American dream. The American dream is not, come like work hard and get something, right? Work hard and make something happen. The American dream is like suddenly you will be famous and you don't have to work for it. Right. I think that is really like the core of the American ideal is I want to be famous, right? I want to be a star. Um, I want to hear about that. Hold on, but I need to get through this thought. Um, um, so there's also this sense of detachment or even dissociation in Aquarius, right? Because we have Ganymede going from like being a normal human being up into the idealized realms of Olympus, right? And even like disassociating, right? Forgets about his life, forgets about his family, forgets about his friends, forgets about his close attachments, right? And is just famous, is like VIP now, right? And like really forgets about the little guys. And he chooses immortality and life of mental or super consciousness in this realm of Olympus, right? This idealized realm over the physical reality and embodiment, right? And so living this high life, he kind of bypasses the actual felt sense and emotional reality of like real world situations and chooses this fantasy of Olympus instead. And so um, And so also there's another character in this story who is Hebe, who is Zeus and Hera's daughter, who Ganymede maybe takes the place of, right? And so Hebe is the goddess of eternal youth, and she has the power to restore youth to mortals. And we can think about maybe her being kicked out of her role as the cupbearer, right? She was the previous cupbearer, and maybe she's kicked out for a younger version of Ganymede, which is an interesting way to think about this myth. We can also see Hebe and Ganymede as two sides of the same coin, this beautiful youth that serves up the ambrosia or immortality to the gods. And so this gives us a kind of theme of Pluto and Aquarius, which is eternal life, this idea of eternal life. And what lives forever, right? Ain't much. I've not met anything that lives forever. And makes me think about this poem by Percy Bysshe Shelley. I met a traveler from an antique land who said, "Two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell its sculptor well those passions red which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them and the heart that fed. And on the pedestal, these words appear: My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty and despair. Nothing besides remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretched far away. Right? What lives forever? Not Ozymandias, right? Maybe the words, the idea of Ozymandias, right? Maybe not. I mean, these Bish Shelley's words, I like that. Percy Bysshe Shelley. Those words, right, make it to us, right? And this idea of Ozymandias, who I think about as like a vacant shopping mall, right? A like abandoned Target. It's like Ozymandias to me, right? But this idea of Target or the idea of capitalism or the idea of commerce or the idea of royalty or the idea of democracy, maybe these things last, right? Who knows, right? But nothing physical lasts, right? Only thought forms or mind viruses live on. um, but physical reality is temporal and it decays and fades out. And so I think part of Aquarius is really reckoning with this split and finding the places where the idea and the reality can exist and coexist, and the places that they can meet. And these two wiggly lines again, right? The idea, the vision, the ideal, and the actual physical reality. And I think with Pluto entering Aquarius, right? This sort of idea of eternal life, the cupbearer and the ambrosia and the youth who is plucked out of mortal reality and given this eternal life and this job, serving the gods, right? Looks down and sees Pluto, this like gnarly fucking Dakini, right? This grim reaper that is just like creating death and decay, right? And is like, oh, fuck that, I'm not going down there, right? Staying up here where it's safe, right? In the idyllic realm, right? And so one of the ways that I think about air signs, they're all dual, right? Libra, the scales, Gemini, the twins, and Aquarius, these two wiggly lines, right? And I think about all of them like the breath, right? The two sides of the breath, the in breath and the out breath. And so, trying to stay in the idealized place of life is like just trying to stay in the in breath, right? Just breathing the in breath and never letting it go, right? Try that. See how well that works, right? Because what happens is that oxygen, that life-giving oxygen, turns to carbon dioxide in the lungs, right? And it becomes toxic. And so if we're just clinging to the idealized vision without coming back into the reality of the situation, it straight up becomes toxic, right? And we need that to be expelled in order for life to renew itself. And I think this is part of the job of Pluto through Aquarius, right? And so in psychology, in psychology, this like clinging to the ideal of eternal life is thought of as the puer complex. It's sort of like the Peter Pan, right? This eternal youth who never wants to come down to earth, who never wants to live in who the puer just wants to live in the realm of imagination and conversation and never actually do anything for fear that if they try something, they will, they will fail, right? And this ideal will never come to pass. So they just stay in this sort of beautiful childlike existence, right? Without like ever coming to Earth. And James Hillman says that like as the puer comes to Earth, like it burns their feet, right? And so they like stay in the sort of Olympian realms, right? And they just want to party all night and sleep all day, and that's the life, right? And I remember my days as a carefree puer youth, right? Just raving all night, sleeping all day, right? But that's not actually life, right? And now we have Pluto moving through this Aquarian realm, right? Which is not about karma, not about consequences. It's about transformation and initiation. And the most common initiation, I think, is the initiation of entering adulthood, right? Which is entering into the realm of responsibility and leaving the carefree realm of youth. And so, in many cultures, initiation is marked by practices that mimic death. And this is so that the child part can symbolically die and an adult self can be resurrected or reborn. And in the West, I think that we have lost touch with these rituals in many ways. And I think that it's left us in this sense of perpetual puer state, right? The eternal youth, fixed on having every need met whenever we want it, right? This is the idea of same day delivery, right? Cheap gas, food from all over the world at affordable prices, instant gratification, like add to cart, buy now, right? It arrives on my porch the next day. And many of us, myself included, have perceived these luxuries as our God-given right, And so what happens when Pluto moves through this territory and forces us into an initiation, right? Forces that like eternal youth to reckon with death, right? Forces us to come back into physical reality, right? And so there's another component of the Ganymede myth. Ganymede's father, Tros, is heartbroken that his son has suddenly disappeared one day. He goes into his room, Ganymede's gone, calls all of his friends, right? Checks his Facebook, puts up flyers, like no response, no one's seen Ganymede, right? And then, so Tros is obviously and understandably pretty distraught. And Zeus looks down from his, eternal orgy on Olympus, right? Just guzzling the nectar of the gods of eternal life, and looks down and sees this weeping old man. And it's like, oh man, I feel kind of bad now. Hermes, like, go bring this dude some amazing horses that are the fastest horses on the planet. And so Hermes does his bidding and is like, "Hey, Tros, we like got you these horses. They're so fast that they'll run over water. Also, your son is now living in Olympus, like serving gods. It's all good, right? He's a star. You should be happy about that. Peace out." And so Tros is like, "Oh, cool. I got these fast horses." Right? Forgets about his son, gets these fast horses, and these horses can run across water, right? And so if we think about the element of water as sort of the emotional self, the emotional body, right? Um, he gets this ability to bypass the feeling state, right? The feeling function, and just stay in the intellect, just like fast, right? Keep going towards the goal. And I think this is also another issue with the Aquarian archetype, one that will be churned up as Pluto moves through this land, right? Aquarius again stays in this Olympian realm, looking down, thinking about what it would be like to feel the feelings without actually feeling the feelings, right? Staying in this sort of digitized, computerized reality, right? Staying in the AI without actually like needing to embody and have the felt sense, the ups, the downs, the emotional reality of life, of the terrestrial realm. And so I think Pluto, as it moves through, is going to kill Tros's horses, right? And like what happens when we are running across water and then suddenly we stop and we sink, right? And we are out way too far to be able to come back, right? Than just being thrown in the deep end because when we thought we were just like, cruising, right? Not having to deal with anything, not having to feel anything, just like staying on our idealized track, right? And then something happens and we are overwhelmed by the feeling. I think this is in 20 years, we're going to have a lot of feelings, and these feelings are going to shift a lot. And one of the things that I think Pluto is going to help us reckon with is how to be with these feelings, right? How to be with the feelings of loss or separation, right? How to be with the tension between the desire to live an idealized realm, right, and the actual physical reality of being on planet Earth and being relational beings here. Because again, Aquarius is about this circle of connection, the inside and the outside, right? And there is no outside of Earth, right? We are all in this together. And I know people are like, oh, I'm going to go to like terraform Mars. And I'm like, more power to you, right? If you want to go to Mars and terraform it, like I support that, right? But we are all here, right? And we are needing to find ways to coexist here. And as Pluto enters into Aquarius and moves through Aquarius, like we are going to get a big sense of what it means to be interconnected, not just through the internet, but actual like systems and weather systems and relationships and how these relationships impact the greater good and how what happens on one side of the planet is not separate, right? That we are all sort of interconnected in this web of life in a really vital way. And I think Pluto is going to make that very apparent over the next 20 years. Um, the last thing that I want to say is just talking about some dates, if I can remember where I put them. Um, okay. So, like I said, Pluto was previously in Aquarius from 1778 to 1797. And just for a little context, the French Revolution starts May 5th, 1789, and goes through November 9th, 1799. So, yeah, the later part of Pluto and Aquarius, French Revolution is going on. That is also related to the signature of Uranus and Pluto, which we are getting a different relationship. This time we have a sextile between Uranus and Pluto, and I believe that the French Revolution was a hard aspect. I didn't double check that. So just remember that. Like, I'm not saying that the French Revolution, like, there is going to be something similar, but this is an echo from that time period, right? And also, although America signed the Declaration of Independence in 1776, the Constitution isn't drafted and signed until September of 1787 during Pluto's time in Aquarius. And it's going to be interesting to look at the Pluto return for the signing of the US Constitution. That's going to give us some information, right? And the last time Pluto was in Aquarius, America was fighting the Revolutionary War, which didn't end until 1783. And so and I'm not saying that like this is a war signature or anything like that. But what I am saying is that America was doing the really difficult work of looking forward to the future and figuring out how to form a new system of government. It's one thing to be like, we're mad as hell and we're not going to take it anymore and I quit. Right. It's something else to be like, now what am I going to do? And how am I going to organize all of this stuff and people into a system that works? Right. And so that was part of the project of Pluto and Aquarius last time was creating systems of governance that would work into the future, right? And these are all like super Aquarian ideals. And very difficult and transformational thing to do and engage in. Also, the shadow side of this is, the beginnings of Manifest Destiny and the genocide of America and Turtle Island. right? Which also is the sort of shadow side of Aquarius, which is assimilation, right? Oh, everybody's got to be in my circle, and anything outside of the circle isn't worth anything, and we got to get rid of that. And so this is also something to really pay attention to, and the echo of, American exceptionalism, white supremacy, genocide, all of these things are the shadow side, the, ethnic cleansing, right, of anything that is different, right? Anything that doesn't fit in this system is wrong or bad or evil and needs to go. And I urge us all to consider that and to be vigilant, not hyper vigilant, but just aware of the ways that this can go terribly, terribly wrong. There are a couple other transits, but I think I've gone on long enough. Let me just. Oh, yeah. The last thing that I want to say is that the sun in Sagittarius is going to sextile Pluto in Aquarius. This is going to happen Thursday, November the 21st. So the sun enters Sagittarius that day and then sextiles Pluto. And so this is like the first kind of contact that Pluto is making in this new territory, right? And this is a communicative aspect. And both the sun and Pluto have entered into kind of like new lands. And I think that there is always this sense of like stepping into a new territory that's a little like, whoa, what have I just got myself into? It's sort of like your parents dropping you off at kindergarten for the first day and being like, bye, honey. And you're like, what's happening here? You know? And like with the sun coming out of Scorpio, I think the sun entering into Sagittarius has this sense of like, fuck, I am never going back there. That was awful, right? That was super intense, and now I'm just like going forward, and I'm never doing that again, never looking back, right? And Pluto has just spent the last 15, 18 years moving through Capricorn, and I imagine is pretty tired, right? It's just been like, whoa, I just transformed a bunch of shit over there. I could use a break, right? Or maybe they get all amped up, right? And they're like, what's next? What's next to destroy? Right. But either way, I think that the first degrees of a new sign are pretty challenging. And so right? How do we, we can just think about these two planets, the Sun and Pluto, kind of supporting themselves as they enter into this new territory. And they're both in these active signs, air and fire, right? Air helps fire to breathe and to spread, and fire heats up air so that it can rise and helps to activate new ideas. So, what are the new ideas that might emerge at this time, right? And how can our sense of self, as we come into communication with the shadow, right, shine a little light on the shadow? How can we sort of allow some new ideas to rise to the surface, right? And what are the fires that we are kindling now as we move into the wintertime and into the dark time? What are the fires that we're kindling that can benefit from a little bit of oxygen? What are the things that we want to like breathe life into? Pluto is about death and rebirth, as well as the shadow and deep survival fears. And so, what are some of the things that we can allow to die, and to allow to compost about ourselves and our identity so that we can live a more authentic life? Right. And how can the light that we bring into this world through our ideas and actions illuminate some of the shadow material that we are afraid of looking at or have been afraid of looking at? And so I think Sagittarius is this fire sign, which is interested in truth, but also is willing to jump in with all four hooves and fuck around and find out. And I think that Sagittarius has the courage to pursue the truth to any ends, to the end of the earth, right? And I think this ability helps us to approach the shadow and the shadow material without fear, or at least with the desire to get to the truth. Because the truth is, we are not our fears. We are not our fuck ups, and we are not our stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves of the world. Right? So, what are some of the narratives that the old stories that we can compost, right? The old stories that we can sacrifice. What are the old stories that we can let go and surrender, right? So that a new narrative can begin to develop at this time? And how can we send those stories into the future to hit the target of our ultimate goal with perfect will, perfect courage? Right? And how can we compost some old stories of scarcity and division, right? So that a new and more vital and more authentic story for here and now can be born. And I will leave you with that koan, my friends. Thank you so much for tuning in to This Week in Space. I am your host with the most, Joan Emerson Bell, aka Blind Stallion Space Wizard. You can find me on Instagram at that handle. If you're on Instagram, you know that already. Tell your friends, tell your family. I don't know. I like doing this, and I like seeing you all out there in TV land. So if this is helpful, let me know. Let your friends know. I also put this show on YouTube each and every week. You can find me at Camp Wizard Camp, and you can find me there now. Or Joan Emerson Bell. That's my YouTube channel. And if you check it out on the YouTube, like and subscribe, I guess. I don't know. That's what everybody says to do. So just go ahead and do that. I'm gonna follow the crowd on that one. I don't really understand the internet or how it works. I know that it runs through tubes and that Al Gore invented it. Other than that, I'm sort of lost. But yeah, if you check me out on the YouTube, like it and subscribe. Couple announcements. Doing a deep dive into 2025 year ahead forecast with Sam Reynolds, Michael Bartlett, and Lindsay Turner. This is going to be in person in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and also simulcast on the World Wide Web. And I will put a link in the show notes to this, and I will also put it in my stories, and I'll make posts about it on the Instagram. So that y'all can check it out. I would love to see you there. I will be talking so much more about Pluto. Some of these ideas that I rambled on about today will be flushed out in a much more robust form. Also, I'll be talking about Mercury, but we will give you, a blow by blow of what to expect and how to show up in 2025. And other than that, that's all the astro weather that is fit to print, my friends. Thank you so much for tuning in. And thank you, Oro Hayes. Yeah, I'm glad that that was helpful. I appreciate you all. Thanks for tuning in and checking me out. Also, oh yeah, I got a radio show. The new episode for the Taurus new moon or Taurus full moon is up now. You can find that on SoundCloud. Just go to Camp Wizard Camp and check out the Taurus full moon episode. I've got a great rock block going out to Pluto's ingress into Aquarius, which is explaining that from a much more visceral and musical level. So check that out. And then also I got a Patreon over there at Patreon. You can find me at Camp Wizard Camp. It's a great way to support this process or to get the radio show delivered to your inbox each and every week, so you're never at a loss for what to listen to and never not knowing what's going down in space. And yeah, also, I don't know, like I do this because I love doing this. And if you want to, you can support me and help me to continue doing this so that I don't have to get a real job, God forbid, because I'm not cut out for that. Anyway, that is my puer self-talking. No, I love doing this, and if you want to support me, that's a great way of doing it. And if you can't afford to do that, that's fine. Support me just by tuning in and giving me some of your attention once a week, or more than that if you want to. If you want to like replay this and figure it out, take notes, whatever feels good. Anyway, until next time, my friends, may the force be with you, and I will see you next week in space. Take care now. Bye.